that again. If you can hear me, please click on the hand symbol. Okay, good. Now you can hear me. Okay, so a little snafu today. My assistant is not here. I don't know, we must have got our signals crossed. So it's going to be very hard for me to present the content and answer questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present the content and then I'll stop and ask for questions. How do you ask questions? You can type them into the questions or chat bar, but I'm not going to be able to answer questions as I'm presenting. That's usually what my assistant does. So I'm sorry about that. But let's get started so we don't run out of time. And you can go ahead and unclick the hand so that your hand is not raised. Excellent. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so just a few things about GoToWebinar. I'm sharing my screen with you that's showing a PowerPoint that we'll go through. The audio is by telephone, so if you're not able to hear us, please let me know via the chat/questions bar. I will take a look at that as soon as I can get a moment to see if there are any technical problems. Just talked about the questions/chat bar. You can raise your hand, which we've already tried, and that seemed to work. So everybody can raise hands at any time. At some points in the presentation, I might ask for a hand, and at that point, I can unmute you. You can speak to the whole group. So, and then don't put us on hold and watch muting from your end of things. Okay, handouts. So this presentation has a number of handouts that go with it. There's a handout section of your GoToWebinar screen, and there are 5 handouts in there, and you can download them at any time during the presentation and take a look at them and have them for later. If you can't figure out how to download the handouts, or if something's going wrong technically, don't worry. I can send them to you via email after the webinar is over. You could just send me an email saying, hey, I didn't get those handouts, and I can send them to you via email. But if you can get into the handout section and download those handouts, go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm just going to stop for a second here because I don't have my assistant, and make sure that there are no technical questions right now. Okay, sorry, I don't usually do this part, so let me just make sure I've got it. Okay, I'm not seeing any technical questions right now, so I'm going to keep going with the webinar content. Okay, and I will pause to see questions periodically. Okay, so the objective of this training is to help you feel comfortable, confident, and prepared to lead your DAISY meetings. And with that, we're going to focus quite a bit on the content of DAISY meetings, so what a meeting should look like. So before we do that, let's test that question chat bar, and why don't you just type in your name and what community you're from, and we'll see if I can see that. Go ahead and just take a moment to type in your name and what community you're from. Okay, good, they're coming in. We've got Melinda from Milton. One of the nice things about the webinar situation is that we have a really large council with lots of communities, so we can have people from all over. So we've got Tracy from Johnson Creek, or Jenny from Johnson Creek, Erica from Beloit, Mary from Sun Prairie. Okay. Okay, excellent. So that part is working, and then I will just make sure that I don't have any technical questions here. Okay, thanks for that. Looks like we're good. Okay, so we're going to proceed with the training. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Girl Scout basics. The mission of Girl Scouts is to build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. We also talk about the 3 keys to leadership in Girl Scouts, which are discover, connect, and take action. On the discovery front, Girl Scouts is a little bit different than, say, like gymnastics or swimming, where girls are only doing one activity. In Girl Scouts, they get to sample a wide range of activities and discover something that they're passionate about, and that's an attraction of Girl Scouts. Connection, girls have the opportunity in Girl Scouts to connect on the troop level, community level, council level, all the way up to the international level as they get a little bit older. You guys have our youngest girls. So there are all these opportunities for connection in Girl Scouts. And Take Action, so the Girl Scout curriculum has what we call Take Action projects built into it. The Take Action projects are developmentally appropriate projects for girls to make their world a better place. We also talk about the 3 processes. Activities are girl-led, girls learn by doing, and girls work together cooperatively. So the girl-led portion is very important. We talk about your goal. You guys have our youngest girls, so things are going to look different at the Daisy level than they do at the even at the Brownie level. But our goal is to turn most of those meeting processes and leading things over to the girls at some point. And so you're preparing them for that progressively. And so we'll talk quite a bit about what are your opportunities at the Daisy level to make activities more girl-led and prepare girls to start taking over the meeting. And I'm going to pause a minute for questions just to see if there's anything technical out there. Okay. All right. I am not seeing, I had one thing from Amanda. Alexandria just figured out her chat. Good. One thing from Amanda saying, not sure I know how to do it. So not sure. I hope Amanda can hear us. Okay. So Amanda, if you cannot hear us, well, you wouldn't be able to hear this, would you? Anyway, if you're having technical difficulties, send those via the chat and question bar, and I'll check in a moment. Okay. Okay, so moving on. What is Volunteer Toolkit? So a lot of times I'm going to talk about Volunteer Toolkit in this presentation, so I just wanted to make sure you knew what it was. So Volunteer Toolkit is a digital assistant you have access to as a troop leader. So all troop co-leaders have access to a Volunteer Toolkit account for their troop. And what you're going to find on Volunteer Toolkit is all of the Daisy curriculum digital. It's on Volunteer Toolkit in a digital format, and you'll have access to that. You'll also have year planning tools and other perks that come with Volunteer Toolkit. We're going to talk more extensively about Volunteer Toolkit later in the presentation, but I wanted to make sure you knew what I meant when I said Volunteer Toolkit. Okay, so you may be thinking, you know, I'm going to have 12 5-year-olds staring at me. What do I do? So we have a suggested meeting structure for all Girl Scout meetings, and this carries through all your levels of Girl Scouts. So what we suggest is an arrival activity, an opening activity, business, activities, snack, cleanup, and closing. And we're going to go through each of those elements and talk about what that's like to lead daisies through each of those elements and give you suggestions in just a minute. But I wanted you to know about this. So this is the Leader's Guide to Success. And this is a new publication that we just put out. It replaced the Badgerland Quick Start Guide, if anyone was familiar with that. But this is a guide that has all the nuts and bolts that you're going to need to know as a troop co-leader. So adult to girl ratios, where to find a safety activity checkpoints, etc. It also has a rundown of this suggested meeting structure. So where do you find this? You may have a paper copy that you received from council in a new troop packet. If not, you can also look at it online. And the at gsbadgerland.org, volunteer resources, and you can click on it online. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of this. I'm just going to pause for a minute to see if we have any questions. Okay, I think looks like we're good from a technical standpoint right now. Again, I will explain if people came in late. My assistant, who's usually here to answer questions while I'm giving the content of the presentation, is not here. So we had some kind of mix-up where she didn't show up. So I am going to check in periodically to see if there are questions. But while I'm presenting, I won't be able to answer questions on the fly. I'll just have to keep checking in. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. Before we talk about the different elements of a meeting structure, let's talk about caper charts. So what is a caper chart? A caper chart is a Girl Scout tradition. Why it's called a caper chart, I'm not entirely sure. If anyone knows that, they can type that into the questions or chat bar. But it's simply a job chart. So you can get really fancy with your caper chart, like this one pictured here. I pulled that off of Pinterest, but by no means do you have to have a fancy caper chart. The important part is that you have a caper chart and that you're using it with the girls, because it presents a lot of girl-led opportunity. And it also helps you as a leader to reduce arguing and girls competing over jobs. Make it cut and dry with a caper chart. So what jobs should you put on the caper chart? The opening leader, I have 4 that I suggest you start with, and then the caper chart can be a work in progress from that point. So the ones I suggest you start with are opening leader or leaders, snack helper, any kind of cleaning task that you have, and then closing leader or leaders. You can have more than one girl in that role. Other than that, wait and see. So go through a few of your meetings and see what you might need. For instance, depending on where you meet, maybe you meet in a school cafeteria or somewhere like that, and they've asked you to stack the tables and chairs afterward. Well, that can be a job that you put on the caper chart, that kind of thing. So wait to see what you might need. Things will emerge on the caper chart. And if you are looking for caper chart ideas and designs, Pinterest is probably the best place to look. And Badgerland has a Pinterest page, and it's divided by level. To access the Pinterest page, you can go to gsbadgerland.org and click on that Pinterest icon and take a look at that daisy level if you want ideas for making a caper chart. Okay. So on to the arrival activity. So there's this part of the meeting in the very beginning, which is kind of unstructured, and can become chaotic. Girls are flowing in at different times. Their parents are bringing them in. Their parents want to talk to you. You want to talk to the parents. The girls see each other. They're super excited, right? So there's this period of time that can get really chaotic. So we really recommend that for your own sanity, that you have an arrival activity ready for the girls. So something like a coloring sheet or a small individual craft or decorating a name tag, something that they can focus on individually. It also provides an important social function for the girls. So if you, during that unstructured time, if girls have something individual to focus on, it prevents, forming cliques or girls who are more socially hesitant feeling left out, so that's a good technique for that, and also frees you up to talk to parents, etc. So what kind of arrival activities? Coloring sheets, crafts, name tags. I pulled these off the internet. One of them is a daisy flower and we'll get to the daisy flowers when we talk about the curriculum that's associated with the daisy curriculum, and that was something quick I found on the internet. Doesn't have to be, it can be something really quick. Okay, so once all of the girls are there and you're ready to start the meeting, what you're going to do is bring everybody together and have your opening leader, who's on the caper chart. You might do this, you will do this for the first few times until the girls understand what's going on, but you're going to recite the promise and the law. So when we recite the Girl Scout promise, we hold up the Girl Scout sign, which is pictured there. So that's your 3 middle fingers together and thumb over pinky on your right hand. So that's the Girl Scout sign. The Girl Scout promises, on my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law. And then the Girl Scout promise, or the Girl Scout law, we don't hold the sign for. You could. Traditionally, people don't. I don't know why. But the Girl Scout law is, as you can see, much, much longer than the Girl Scout promise. But I recommend as daisies that you recite the Girl Scout law every time, because it's an essential part of the DAISY curriculum. All of your DAISY curriculum is based on the promise and the law and reinforcing those ideas. So it's best for the girls to recite it each time. There are many creative ways to help girls memorize the law. One I've heard of is a song that people found on YouTube. It's a call and response Girl Scout song that memorizes the lines of the law. There's also some clever craft projects you can do, a different bead for every line of the law, things like that. So anything to help them get familiar with that Girl Scout law. And then on the promise, I meant to say, the word God is in the promise, and it's been there since the beginning. But I just wanted to reassure you that GSUSA makes no attempt to define the word God, and encourages people to substitute something that's appropriate for their own spiritual beliefs when they're making the promise. And now, Anat, I'm going to pause for any kind of questions we might have out there. Okay, I hope my question thing is working because I'm not seeing any questions. Okay. Okay. Oh, here's something coming in. You're doing great. Thank you, Melinda. Okay, so with the promise and the law, what you're going to do is you're going to lead the girls through it the first few times, and then once girls become familiar with the process, then you'll have your opening leader come up, and it'll be her job to lead, and you can have more than one girl in that job too, to lead everybody in the promise and the law. What else do you do during the opening section of the meeting? That kind of depends on your group. So if you have a group that's maybe a little shy or hesitant, it's hard to draw them out. Sometimes something like an icebreaker is a really great idea for a group like that. So you could ask something like, what's your favorite Halloween candy? And everybody gets to say something just to get them started talking. Another great way to start off your meeting is with another Girl Scout tradition, and that's singing a Girl Scout song. So this is a cute little Daisy song I pulled off the internet again. There are 5 of these, at least, Daisy songs sung to the tune of I'm a Little Teapot. I will not subject you to that song, to my singing this song, but I will tell you, I find the best resource for Girl Scout songs is YouTube, and I kind of mentioned this before. YouTube is just search for Girl Scout songs or a particular song, and you're going to turn up a lot. And it's good for me because I don't read music, so I need to hear the tune of the song, and then almost all Girl Scout songs have hand motions that go with them, so then you can see them on YouTube too. So I recommend YouTube as your go-to Girl Scout song resource. So once the girls are familiar with the routine, your opening leader can decide what's going to happen during the opening. So she has everybody recite the promise and the law, or leads everybody. And then she can decide, what are you going to do during the opening? Are you going to sing a song? What song are you going to sing? This is a great girl-led opportunity, and it really jazzes the girls up too, to be there. They're all going to want to be that opening leader. So that's why we put that on the caper chart, and a good girl-led opportunity. Okay. Once you've done the opening, you move on to the business section of the meeting. During the business section of the meeting, this is where you're going to make any group decisions that you need to make and talk about any rules you need to talk about. So you're going to make all kinds of group decisions as a Girl Scout troop, be it, are you going to go on an overnight? What are you going to do with your cookie money, etc. This is the time to do it. So when you're all sitting together and working together. So I always recommend that leaders look at different decision-making processes than just majority rules. So we all know majority rules, right? But that's not always the best way to make decisions. So it really benefits the girls, and it's a good learning experience for them and for you to really look at different decision-making processes to make decisions in your Girl Scout group. The other thing that happens in the business section is talking about any rules or group norms that you want to reinforce. So for instance, if maybe you noticed at the last meeting that girls were leaving each other out. So I always tell leaders to use the promise and the law to help them. So you could say something like, hey, I noticed at our last meeting that everybody wasn't being a sister to every Girl Scout. How can we work on that? What do we need to do differently? So you're not picking on any individuals, right? But you're drawing out the group to talk about how they can improve. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Just one second. How do they improve? Girl Scout promise and law. Okay, I'll just leave it there. Oh, no, here we go. The important part about this is that you don't let negative behaviors in your troop go. So if you're observing things that you don't like, that are negative behaviors, they can form kind of a negative culture in your troop. So make sure that you're consciously bringing those up, and the business section is a great time to do it, and working on them with the girls. Okay, and with that, I will pause for questions. Let's see if there's any questions out there. Okay, not seeing anything right now. I'll come back in a moment. We'll probably have a lot more questions when we get to the curriculum content, which is what we're going to do next. So, okay, so we're going to start with our business today, which is learning all of your options, which are many now, with the DAISY curriculum. So we're going to actually start on this side, on the What Do Daisies Do diagram. And we're going to start with what's called the Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting. And I have a visual. So this is the Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting for Daisies. Every level of Girl Scouting has a Girl's Guide. So what's in this book? So the first thing that's in there is the handbook section. And that's going to have some information. For Daisies, it has information about the flower friends, which are part of the Daisy curriculum, and being a Daisy in general. And then it's going to have a uniform diagram. So one thing I want to caution you about is these uniform diagrams aren't current. They're not too, the principles are the same, and we'll go over the uniform later in the presentation, but don't rely on this uniform diagram. The latest uniform diagram I've provided in the handout section, and you can also find it on our website because they've added a lot of new things to the curriculum that they don't picture here on this uniform diagram. Okay, and then the other thing that's always going to be in the handbook section is talking about moving to the next level. So we call that in Girl Scouts bridging. So bridging, so once the girls have done 2 years of Daisies, they can become Brownies. And I'll talk about what are the requirements for bridging to the Brownie level. And when I say requirements, that's a really strong word. I get a lot of questions about bridging, moving to the next level. And there really aren't a lot of requirements per se. It's very open. The best place to find a description of, let's see, where is it? This section. Here we go. Bridging to Girl Scout Brownies. The best place to find a description of what is required from bridging is in the Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting. And I see I have a question, so I'm going to pause here. Okay, so Mary asked, where can we get the Daisy curriculum? Where you get, this is a great question. We have 4 service centers in Badgerland, one in Madison, one in Platteville, one in Janesville, and one in La Crosse. Each of those service centers has a store associated with it that has, all the stores have different hours, but each of the stores supplies all of the Girl Scout curriculum, all of the books, etc. It's also available online via Volunteer Toolkit, which I'm going to show you later on in the presentation. You can also purchase it online, purchase the Girl Scout curriculum online and have it delivered to your house as well. So those are the methods for getting Girl Scout curriculum, and we'll go over each of them at some point. If you're interested in going to a Girl Scout shop at Badgerland, the best thing to do is go to gsbadgerland.org, click on shop, and that's going to show you all the locations and their hours. And if you have a question about, all the shop attendants are very knowledgeable. If you have a question about, is this piece there, or where do I need to go to get this, you can always call as well and ask about that. Okay, so I hope I answered that. Let me just check. Okay, one more question from Melinda. Do you have an updated uniform diagram for the vest instead of the tunic? Not at this time. The one that's up on our website and the one that I gave you is the most current one. And they will probably revise, the GSUSA makes them, they'll probably revise them in October because that's what they did last year. So look back in October for the most recent one. Okay. Okay. So back to the Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting. What's in here? What's in here are your petals, your instructions for doing your daisy petals. So these are the petals here. There's 10 of them, and then there's a middle piece called the Promise Center. So what do you need to do to earn your petals? And I grab the packet out of here. So in the Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting is a packet for each one of the petals. This one is Lupe, and it's associated with a line of the Girl Scout Law and a flower friend. So Lupe represents the line Honest and Fair from the Girl Scout Law, and she's a lupine. She's the flower friend. How do you proceed through these? What they'll have is a story. All of the petal packets have a story that precedes them, and the story will illustrate whatever line of the Girl Scout Law that they're trying to teach. And then once you finish the story, there are 3 steps, and in the 3rd step, you have a choice of what activity you want to do. When you've completed those 3 steps, you have completed the petal packet, and the girls have earned the petal. So that's how you work through the petals. Let me just pause for a minute because I think I have a question here. Okay. Maybe I missed it, but what is different from the book diagram? The book diagram, so Stacy asked, what is different from the diagram that's in the Girls Guide to Girl Scouting to what we have now? All of the new Daisy badges and Daisy Journey Awards that they've added in the past 2 years are not on that diagram that's in the book. The basic principles, like where things go, what goes on the front, what goes on the back, that's all still the same. And the structure of the tunic and the vest have not changed at all. It's those additional badges, because we never had Daisy badges before the last 2 years, and new Journey Awards. That's what's changed. Okay. So what else is in that Girls Guide to Girl Scouting? So you've got all of your petal packets in there. Then you have this Promise Center. There is no specific packet for the Promise Center. So you, as the leader, decide when you feel like the girls have made progress on understanding and memorizing the promise, and then you can award that Promise Center. There's no specific packet for it. And then the other thing that's in there are these 4 financial literacy leaves here. 2 of them go with the cookie business, so those are earned during a cookie sale. And I'll just give you a tip. If you attend, and I suggest that you do, Badgerland has what we call cookie kickoffs. It's very hard for me to say, cookie kickoffs, which is a fun event for girls and for their leaders that kicks off the cookie sale. And usually at those cookie kickoffs, they will have the opportunity, Badgerland plans activities so that the girls can earn those 2 cookie financial literacy leaves. Then there's 2 more financial literacy leaves that go with that, that come in the Girls Guide, and those can be earned at any time. So that's what's included in the Girls Guide. I'm going to pause now and see if there are any questions about the Girls Guide before we move on to Journeys. Any questions about the Girls Guide? Okay. We're going to move on. Don't worry, you still have time to type them in. I'm going to move on to Journeys and check back when I've done talking about Journeys. Okay, so what are Journeys? So that's the next part of this diagram that we're going to look at right here. These are the 3 original leadership journeys that are for Daisies. Let me show you what they look like. So the first thing you'll notice, you'll ask yourself, well, what is a journey? How is it different from petals or badges? A journey is a much longer commitment. So journeys are meant to teach girls leadership skills. And by that nature, they're it's more broad. It's harder to teach than a skill. So it's a bigger commitment than a badge or a petal. As you can see, this is the Between Earth and Sky journey. This is the book that the girls get. And it's long, right? You know, it could take you the whole Girl Scout year to work your way through the journey. So how do you know what to present with the journey? Each journey, printed journey, comes with an adult guide. So this is the adult guide. It's basically like your teacher book. And what it's going to have in here is, in the beginning, it'll talk about the journey, what the journey's about, what it's meant to teach, right? And working with daisies. And then it'll have 7 to 10 lesson plans in the back. I call them lesson plans. I used to be a teacher, but you know, I don't know if they call them lesson plans, activity plans, but it'll have 7 to 10 of these that tell you exactly how to present the journey to the girls. With all Girl Scout curriculum, and we're going to emphasize this a little bit later too, you are free to make any changes you feel like are more beneficial for your girls, skip any activities, change activities, etc. You're not locked in to what they present here. These are guidelines and ideas for how to present the journey to the girls. So the original 3 journeys that we have in print are Welcome to the Flower Garden, this one here. And the theme of that journey is advocacy. So it's about how can girls make their world a better place. And then the second journey in the ones that we have in print, is Between Earth and Sky, this one. And this is an environmentally themed journey. So the activities and the Take Action project, so all journeys culminate in a Take Action project, are about protecting the environment. And then the third journey that we have in print for Daisies is called 3 Cheers for Animals. And that's in the personal expression, the It's Your Story, Tell It series. So much more focused on drawing, acting, personal expression. That one is. Okay, so I still have a question, so I'm just going to pause here. Okay, so someone asked, what is the name of the book with the lesson plans? Can we purchase those online? Absolutely, you can purchase them online if you want to. It is called, I'll just pull it up right up to the camera here. I guess I call it the Adult Guide, but this is officially what it looks like. How to Guide Girl Scout Daisies Through Whatever the Journey is. How much are the adult guides? Jennifer asked, how much are these adult guides? They come as a set. You can buy the Journey at the girls book and the adult guide together, and I think as a set they're $7 to $8. But that's close. But I don't have the exact price on that. But what I'm going to show you, what we're going to move into now, is the fact that all of this curriculum is also available online via Volunteer Toolkit, as well as lots of other choices. So that's what we're going to move into now. Okay, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a few questions, but I am going to move through that, and then I'll stop and take the questions. Okay, so with Volunteer Toolkit, that digital assistant that you now have access to, you have a lot more choice with DAISY curriculum. So I'm going to refer you to this handout, the pre-selected tracks, 2018-2019 pre-selected tracks for your DAISY troop. That's one of the handouts that's in the handout section. And again, don't worry if you're having trouble downloading those handouts. I can email those to you afterwards as well. But we're going to go through what's available on Volunteer Toolkit for you as Daisies. Okay. So what Volunteer Toolkit does is it has what they call year plans. And year plans are from 7 to 15 meetings. So each year plan is from 7 to 15 meetings where you earn certain things. And you can pick from these pre-selected year plans, right? So here's what's available for Daisies. The first one is the Daisies, Petals, Leaves, and Badges. So with that year plan, if you picked that one in Volunteer Toolkit, you would get a meeting to earn all of the petals and the Promise Center, meetings to earn these 2 financial literacy leaves, and it also includes a Take Action project. I haven't looked at it in depth in Volunteer Toolkit what that Take Action project is. It's probably just some guidelines, and then you'll have a choice of what you'd like to do. The second year plan that's available in Volunteer Toolkit to Daisies is the Daisy Badge Year. So as I mentioned, Daisy badges are new. Daisies did not have badges up until last 2017. So this new badge year covers a bunch of the Daisy badges that they've added and these 2 financial literacy leaves. The next choice you have is Daisy Badge Year 2, also new, covering more of the Daisy badges that are available. And they're super fun, new topics for Daisies and the badges. And it has the 2 financial literacy leaves as well. So then your fourth choice of year plans, and I know this is getting complex, but we'll stop and talk in a minute. The fourth choice of year plans is it's one of the original written journeys or printed journeys, the Advocacy Journey, Welcome to the Flower Garden. You can also do that on Volunteer Toolkit, right? So you can do that in print, but you can also do it on Volunteer Toolkit. Then the Creative Expression one, 5 Flowers, 4 Stories, 3 Cheers for Animals, available on Volunteer Toolkit. The Environmental Journey, available in print and available on Volunteer Toolkit, Between Earth and Sky. Okay, so those 6 are all of that material is also available in print. Now we get to things, year plans that are only available on Volunteer Toolkit. You can piece them together from printed materials, but it's kind of difficult. And the best way to get to them is via Volunteer Toolkit. So choice 7 of year plans for Daisies is an outdoor journey where you're earning 2 Daisy badges and you do a Take Action project. The next choice, the 8th choice, is Think Like a Citizen Scientist. You're doing 1 Daisy badge and a Take Action project. Think Like an Engineer, 1 Daisy badge, Take Action project, and Think Like a Programmer, 1 Daisy badge and a Take Action project. I know our heads are going to explode, but there's still one more choice. Those are all the year plans that Volunteer Toolkit has put together for you, and you can select. But you can also do this. So this is choice 11. They call it Select Your Own now, where you can pick and choose from all of the DAISY curriculum to make your own year plan, right? So whatever you want to put in that year plan, you can pick out of the DAISY curriculum and put it in there. Okay, I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to stop for a moment to take questions. Actually, no, I'm going to go through my little speech next and then take questions because it might answer some of your questions. Okay, so you may be saying, oh my God, that's a lot for like 5-year-olds, right? So what do we do? Do we do the petals? Do we start a journey? Do we do both? So the short answer is it's completely up to you, right? So you don't hit a requirement in Girl Scouts until juniors. So daisies and brownies are not required to do, there's no like you need to complete all your petals in 1 year, or there are no requirements like that. When they become juniors, if they want to do the Bronze Award, which is the first of our higher awards, it goes bronze, silver, gold, they have to complete a junior journey. But that is absolutely the first requirement that you hit in Girl Scouts. So with that said, of course, we want you to work on the Girl Scout curriculum. Badgerland officially recommends that you do your petals the first year. That's, the girls love them. They are well set up for, each petal can fit into one meeting usually. And we recommend that your meetings are about an hour at the DAISY level, and the petals fit pretty nicely into, they're written that way to fit into one meeting. It's a good foundation for girls at the DAISY level to do their petals. So if you're casting about and thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? And you're just brand new to this, do your petals. That's the best way to start. But if you want to shake it up and mix things up, you can do your petals and a journey at the same time, right? You don't have to do that if that seems daunting, but you certainly can do that. And lots of troops do that, but no pressure. So what's really the important point here is that you are, I usually read my little speech here, but I'm trying to remember it. The important thing is that you're having fun. That's actually the important part, that the girls are learning and making connections and you're having fun and feeling together as a troop. So if you're pushing too hard on the curriculum to push through things as fast as you can, then step back, right? You don't need to. There's no requirements that you do that, right? Okay, so now I'm going to pause and send me any questions you have about the curriculum, if there are any. Maybe I said it all. And it's also going to depend on how often you meet. So we recommend that daisies meet twice a month, right? So every other week. Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's what we recommend. Twice a month, every other week is the recommendation for daisies for about an hour. But some troops choose to meet more than that, and some troops choose to meet less. You know, so it's all really going to depend a lot on what your circumstances are and how much you get done. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. You certainly can send them at any time. Okay. All right. So we're going to, oh, you answered mine. Awesome. Okay. So, so here we go. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next section here. Okay. So let's talk about an individual activity. So in the activities section of the meeting, you're going to work on Girl Scout curriculum. Let's actually go through one of those, right? So the first thing I want to point out is, so this is a petal packet. Lupe's story from the Honest and Fair petal. This is what it looks like when you get it in the Girls Guide, right? So it's pretty, it's got pictures, you know. When you are looking at it in Volunteer Toolkit, this is what it looks like, this activity plan. So I just want to make sure, because that can be really confusing to people. They go on Volunteer Toolkit expecting to see this. That's not what you see. What you see is the activity plan, which is the complete rundown to you as the leader of how to do this, what the requirements are, what game to play to proceed through this petal. So just so people understand that there's a difference between those two formats. Okay, I'll pause a moment. Are there any questions about that? We're going to talk more about Volunteer Toolkit in a moment too. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so we'll go on. Okay, so I took this activity from the Volunteer Toolkit activity plan for the Lupe petal, and it's the equivalent. So the third step in the petal packet says, practice being honest and fair. There are lots of ways to act like Lupe. Try out doing one of these activities. And one of the choices is to play a game like musical chairs or red light, green light to practice being honest and fair. In Volunteer Toolkit, in the activity plan, they don't say pick a game, they give you a game, right? That's kind of how a big difference between, Volunteer Toolkit and these written packets is in Volunteer Toolkit, they're going to give you much more structured, laid out instructions for how to proceed. Doesn't mean you have to do it exactly like they said, right? Or it's just ideas for you. Okay, so this game is what they've picked out for you in Volunteer Toolkit. So take a moment and just read through, it's called the Island Game, read through this game, picturing, you may know your girls, you may not know them yet, you know your own daughter, picturing girls participating in this game. So just take a moment to read through that. Mary asks, what are the packets called? Can we order them? I think you can, I don't think you can get the individual packets. I think you can only get them in the Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting. I hope that answers your question. So you'd have to purchase a Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting to get the packets. I don't think you can get them individually. And then Stacy asked, are there any recommendations on locations for meetings? And let's hold that question for a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we later on in the presentation. But let's focus on this game here. So basically, this game, if people have looked through it, is very much like musical chairs, except that there are islands, which there's newspaper down on the floor where girls have to have a foot on the island when the music, well, this says a foot and a hand, when the music stops. Okay, so with this game in mind, I just want to talk a little bit about facilitating any activity in Girl Scouts and different kind of steps that you need to go through to facilitate them. But we're going to use this game as an example. So the first thing you need to think about is setup and preparation when you're facilitating an activity. So having looked at that game, what do you need to make sure you have set up or prepared before the girls get there to play this game? And I'm asking you to type that into the questions or chat. What do you need to do to prepare for this game? Any thoughts? Okay, so Melinda says, read the directions and have the materials, bring newspapers, spread them out, have newspaper, yeah, so the materials, right? So that's something that you're going to definitely need ahead of time, is to make sure that you have the materials ready. Then there's going to be things like music. Are you going to use music? What are you going to do for music, right? So that all kind of falls under materials. And absolutely, as Melinda said, you're going to have to read the directions ahead of time. Basic rule of thumb, I know this is common sense, but you don't want the first time that you're reading that activity to be when you're presenting it to girls, because you'll be caught out. You don't have the stuff to do it, right? Other things to think about when you're setting up and preparing is, do you have the space for this, right? So maybe you meet in a small room in the library. And this is kind of, this game could get kind of crazy, right? So maybe you need to go outside for this game, right? Or et cetera, you know, so thinking about all of those parameters to get set up and ready. Okay, so the next thing we think about are rules, right? So, next thing it's so distracting to try to do the questions and the presenting at the same time. I'll get back to the questions in just a minute. Talk about rules. So the activity plan and Volunteer Toolkit for the Island Game gives you a lot of suggestions for what the rules should be. But I also think when you're reading through this and knowing your girls, knowing your situation, knowing where you meet, et cetera, you might think of other things that you're like, I need to say that. You know, I need to make sure that I say this. I need to make sure that they know this before we do this activity, right? So I always think of it kind of as a division between, there's emotional safety and physical safety, right? We're used to the physical safety stuff, you know, no one can get, you know, can't push anybody, you know, that kind of thing, right? Or if we're outside, we can't run into the street, you know, those kind of physical safety things. But there's also these emotional safety things that especially come in something like a competitive game like this. So this is a game where you can get out, right? And what if you were the first person to get out? I picture my own girl at that age, and she would have been crying in the corner if she was the first person to get out during this game, right? So you have to think about that as well and think, do I want to change this game? Do I want to do something different? Do I want to make sure I have something set up so we're dealing with those issues as well? Okay, so I'm just going to pause for a minute and see if there are any questions. Okay, so Sally says, I would have the possibility of 2 games for the girls to choose from and materials for both. And that's a great idea too, because maybe this game isn't going to work out very well for your group. Okay, any other questions on rules or setting up? Okay, so then the next step is everything's set up, the girls are prepared, you've talked about the rules, they're ready to go, you set them loose on the activity, and you're not done, right? You need to be actively monitoring that activity while the girls are doing it. And your other volunteers who are helping you will also be actively monitoring. So what are you looking for when you're monitoring an activity? And here I'm asking for your input in the questions bar. What are you looking for in monitoring an activity? What kind of things are we looking for? So Amanda says safety. Alexandra says how the girls treat each other. Exactly. So all those things we kind of talked about, scouts breaking rules, upholding Girl Scout values. If all the girls are participating, these are great answers. So you guys know what you're looking for when you're actively monitoring activity. Respect. Yeah. So you're going to make sure, and there might be situations, especially, and I pick this game to go through these steps with, because it is a game that I think could potentially get kind of ugly, right? I intentionally picked this game because it brings up issues, right? So just making sure, and Jennifer says making sure the girls are safe and following the values. So making sure that you're monitoring that activity. You might have to get in there and do something at some point, redirect girls, comfort a girl who's upset, whatever it is, you're going to have to probably do that at some point during this activity. Okay, so then the last thing we talk about is conclusion or debriefing. Debriefing is just a fancy way to say conclusion. Volunteer Toolkit will often give you questions to ask the girls after the activity to kind of bring that out. But what you're trying to do is draw connections between the activity, make sure that everybody feels comfortable with the activity, make sure they understood why they did it, right? Why you did this activity. That's what the debriefing section is all about. It's especially important if things get ugly or if you have to end something, right? So for instance, you might say something like, hey, I don't know, we're going to take a chance on this island game. I can see it going south, but let's take a chance. Let's try it. So you try it, and then it's a big mess. Girls are falling, girls are crying. It's a big mess, right? So you can end the activity, but make sure that if you do that, that you go through this conclusion and debriefing step so it's a learning experience. So saying things like, wow, what happened there? And how can we do it better next time? And what did we learn from that? Things like that. Okay, so, and then the other thing I wanted to say is, as with, you could be reading through this activity and say, no, we're not going to do that. I don't think my girls are ready for that. I don't think my space can handle that. That is totally fine. You are empowered to make changes in any way that you want to. So what I would say then is, what is this step trying to teach? And in this case, it was being honest and fair, right? So if you have another idea to teach that, or you feel like another activity that you think is going to work better for you and your situation, you are empowered to do that. So I just want you to know that. You don't have to follow lockstep with what it says in the curriculum. Okay, pausing for questions on that. Okay, not seeing any, but they can still come. I'll pause again, don't worry. I'm going to keep moving. Snack. Oh, we've done so much work. We deserve a snack. Unfortunately, I cannot give you a snack. And I just want to say a few things about snack. So the first thing to say about snack is that you don't have to have one. It's not mandatory for Girl Scouts to have a snack at their Girl Scout meetings. Lots of troops choose to have a snack because they want to. How you provide snack is completely up to you. If you want to use troop funds to provide the snack, if you want to have a job on the caper chart where it rotates through the girls' families to provide the snack, that is completely up to you. And then where you put the snack is also up to you. So you'll notice with your daisies, you already know this, you have kids, right? But that if you promise a snack and you don't deliver until pretty late in the meeting, you might get a lot of snack-based distraction, right? So you have to figure out what works best with your group for when you put the snack, right? So maybe it's right at the beginning. Maybe that works, get it out of the way, snack's all done, now we can concentrate, right? It just really depends on your group. And then the other suggestion I give for snack at the DAISY level is there are almost every piece of DAISY curriculum has a story associated with it. Like all of the petals have a little story to begin. The journeys have many stories in them. That might be, and I always suggest that because at the DAISY level, you're going to have such a huge variety of reading levels from non-readers to fluent readers, that you do the reading as the leader. So when you're reading a story, that might be a good time for them to have a snack. Nice, calm time for them to have a snack. Okay, and I will pause. Are there any questions about snack? Okay, so I have a question from Mary. When kids sign up, do they disclose allergies or should the leaders just reach out to each parent? So Mary, what's going to happen is each parent's going to fill out a health history form. That's one of the requirements, that you have all the girls' health history forms when you're meeting with them, and that should have the allergies. That will prompt them to disclose allergies if the girls have them. Okay, so let's keep going. Oh, we've gotten to the uniform. Okay, so you're going to do all these activities, and girls are going to earn awards to put on their uniforms from doing these activities. Let's talk about the uniform. So this diagram is the latest DAISY diagram. We're just looking right now at the tunic. The vest diagram is also available. So this is the one I provided for you in your handout section. So at the DAISY level, they have a choice of tunic or vest. And the tunics only come in at the DAISY level. So this is your only chance to have a tunic. So good rule of thumb, all of the earned awards, so all of your petals, your financial literacy leaves, badges, journey awards, those all go on the front of the uniform. And this is true through all your levels of Girl Scouts. And fun patches go on the back. So what's a fun patch? So this is an example of girls wearing fun patches. Fun patches are basically a commemorative patch of something you either did together as a troop or the girl did individually. So for instance, if you decide to go to the pumpkin patch as a troop, take a little trip to the pumpkin patch, you, the leader, can purchase these pumpkin patch fun patches, and they're very inexpensive, the fun patches. And the girls can put those on their uniforms to mark the time they went to the pumpkin patch together, right? So that's what a fun patch is. They are all over the place, right? So our shops stock a certain number of fun patches that you can pick up like right there at the shop. There are also catalogs full of fun patches that you can look at in the shops or online. You will go to Girl Scout events, either Badgerland sponsored or ones that you initiate yourself, and there potentially will be fun patches available there. They will pop up all over the place. So one thing the product sale people always want me to tell you guys. So the girls will earn patches for doing product sales, but those go on the back of the vest. I find that confusing just because, product sale is an earned thing, right? But the patches actually go on the back of the vest. The other thing about fun patches is the girls don't all have to look the same, and that's true of the uniform in general. Girls have their own choice of whether they want to have the tunic or the vest. The whole troop doesn't have to look exactly the same. Also, girls can they might participate in something individually. Maybe they're on a vacation with their family at a national park and they're in the gift shop and they see a patch that they really love. They can go ahead and put that on their uniform. That's okay. The girls don't all have to look the same. Okay, so I am going to pause a moment and see if there are any questions on that bit of uniform. We're going to go through more. Okay, not seeing anything right now. Okay, so we'll keep going. Oh, I've got one here. What patches are mandatory to buy? Okay, we're just about to cover that. So here we go with that. Oops. Sorry. Fun patches. Okay, so what about all this stuff, right? So we've got this is the mandatory stuff right here. Oops, sorry. Right here. So how do you get those things? First, I'm going to show you actually where to go to get uniform diagrams. So there's the one that I provided for you, and if you go to our website, gsbadgerland.org, and basically if you have a question, you're almost always going to gsbadgerland.org. Under our program and uniforms, and there's an option to click here, and that's going to take you to all the uniform diagrams. Okay, just want to get that in there so I didn't forget. So back to mandatory pieces. How do you get all of these pieces, right, and who pays for them? So one quick and easy way to do that is to purchase a starter kit. So the starter kit is something that the shop will put together for you, which is convenient, and it lists all of the things that are essential to the uniform, right? So if we look at the Daisy one here, these are all the pieces that they need to start their uniform, and then they can choose a tunic or a vest. But then with the starter kit, the girls do need to choose one piece of Girl Scout curriculum to go with it. So either a Girl's Guide or one of the Daisy Journey books. So if you are not going to go the route of having all the girls purchase a Girl's Guide, starter kits might not be exactly for you, but they are a convenient option. And if you do buy the starter kit, you get a free bag. The girls get a free backpack to carry the starter kit stuff in. So who pays for all that, right? So who pays for the starter kit, et cetera? The theory in Girl Scouts, or the practice in Girl Scouts, is that the troop, once the girls have a chance to go through a successful product sale, the troop will pay for all Girl Scout expenses. But you're a brand new troop, right? And you haven't been through a product sale yet, right? So who pays for that? Generally, it's the parents. So they will purchase the first uniform and startup pieces that they need. The troop leader tells them where they can get it and what they need, and then it's up to the parents to purchase that first uniform and curriculum, et cetera, for the first year. But remind parents, if they balk at that, remind parents that, once we get going and we get through a successful product sale, they shouldn't be buying another uniform. The troop should buy the uniform, right? And that's, the troops work things out in different ways, deciding who pays for what. But that's the general theory, is that Girl Scouts fundraise with the product sales in order to pay for their essential Girl Scout expenses. So that's the general theory. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a minute. You might be wondering, how can I get this starter kit brochure or order a starter kit? So you go to gsbadgerland.org and click on Shop. There is a link to the starter kit brochures there, and you can always call as well. Okay, so I'm going to just pause for questions. Okay, looks like we answered the mandatory patch one. People also ask me, when are uniforms mandatory? So uniforms are only mandatory in Girl Scouts for two things. When they're selling product, girls have to be in uniform. And if they're representing Girl Scouts in something like a parade, they need to be in uniform. Other than that, it's a choice. So most girls like to wear their uniforms, so people will wear their uniforms out and about or wear them to the meetings, et cetera. But I just want you to know that that's the only two times in which uniforms are required. Okay, so back to our, did I say everything I want to say about uniforms? I think so. Okay. Okay, I'll just pause. Any questions about uniforms? Okay, I'm going to go on. Okay, so you hand like a 5 to 7-year-old this tiny scrap of fabric that is the Daisy petal. What are the chances that that's going to go from their hand to the uniform and in the right place, right? Probably fairly low. One thing a leader told me once that I thought was a really great division of labor was, and leaders handle this in all different ways, but the leaders would safety pin, patch badge, whatever it was, to the right spot, and then it was up to the girls' parents to get it put on permanently, ironed on, etc. I was like, oh, that's nice. That kind of divides the labor. There are many ways to handle this, right? They're in their handout section. You have a combined handout called Volunteer Toolkit Take-Home Activity and Leader Tips and Tricks. And in the Leader Tips and Tricks section of the handout, there is a whole section on this very question. How best to get the girls the badges and patches, when to put them on, how to put them on, what products work to put them on, etc. So take a look at that when you have time. Okay, so pausing now again, if there are any last lingering uniform questions before we move on. Okay, it seems like we're good there. Let me check our time. Oh, we're doing good. Okay. Okay, so once you get comfortable meeting with your girls, you're going to want to do things outside your normal meeting times. Go on, take activities and trips outside your normal meeting times. So I just want to introduce this concept of progression. This is the official Girl Scout progression chart, but it's kind of wordy, but I'll bring it down to a simple concept is girls build their skills by taking on developmentally appropriate challenges and then using those skills to take on the next challenge, right? And that's true of you too as the leaders. And outdoor progression is a really good example. So you wouldn't want your first trip with your daisies to be like a 10-day kayaking in the Boundary Waters, right? With like your 5-year-olds, right? No, that's a really bad idea. And I'm asking you now, what would be, thinking about it, a good first trip outside your normal meeting times? And think real simple. What would be a first, and go ahead and type that into questions. Okay, I'm getting nature hike, nature walk. Yep, we're all thinking along the same lines here. Go to the park, exactly. So super simple for your first venture out, right? You know, it could even be the park that's right near your meeting spot. It could be a walk, right? Someone said we meet right by a lake. We could just walk out, take a look at the lake, right? And this time of year too is a wonderful time of year to incorporate some kind of nature or scavenger hunt or something like that into it, right? So start really simple. You go out to look at the lake, look at the leaves maybe. All your ducks are in a row. You've got all your forms that you need. You make sure that it's all okay. Everybody comes back alive, right? And then you're like, whew, that went pretty well. I think we're ready to move to the next level, right? So the next level might be something like going to the pumpkin patch or going to the zoo, you know. That is a whole nother level of complexity where you need drivers, you know, need to organize that, need permission slips, etc. So just build that way. Don't throw yourself into something big and then everybody has a really bad experience and doesn't want to do Girl Scouts anymore. So, but it sounds like we're all on the same page there. Okay, so how do we find activities for our troops to do, right? So the best place to look is on our website at the activities section of our website, and this is where you're going to find the digital version of this publication, which is called the Pathfinder. So the Pathfinder is the list of all of the Badgerland sponsored activities that are, because Badgerland puts on a lot of programs for the girls. I did mention the cookie kickoffs. That's just one of them that are available to troops, right? Or and individual girls too. So take a look through this Pathfinder. You may have already received the print version in your mailbox. Hopefully you have. If you haven't, you can look at it online as well. And the way you do that is you'd click on event program guides, and that would take you right to the Pathfinder, and you can take a look at it through line and then register right from there too. So take a look through here to see if there are any of activities that you would like to do. And then you can also look at it via the activities calendar, which lists everything in the calendar format here. And then there's also the list of activities. That's kind of hard to look through because it's just a big long list of activities in the order that they're occurring. So I really recommend the Pathfinder is the best way to look at it. Okay, what else? So you can, there's still more choices. So if you go to this more stuff to do page that's under activities as well, this is where you find the information about community opportunities. So they've gone by a lot of different names in the past. They've been program partners, Friends of Badgerland. Now we call them community opportunities, but it's the same concept. So it's a business or an organization that has a relationship with Badgerland where they offer a whole range of things, from a discount all the way up to an overnight where they're earning some kind of, you know, Girl Scout curriculum piece, right? There's a huge range of these things. How do you find out about these? The ones that Badgerland initiates, the way you find out about them is clicking here, upcoming community program opportunities. They used to print these in the Pathfinder if you've you know, you may be brand new, but if you have been here before, they used to print these in the Pathfinder. They're not going to do that anymore. They are printing, they're only available online, the listings for these here. They're all up already in the activities calendar, but to see a list of them, click here. And then the other option is if you want to initiate for your troop an event with a community opportunity, you can look through this community opportunity directory, and that'll give you all the rundown on what we've got. So where the place is, how much it costs per girl, who you need to call, etc. What curriculum connections it might have. So if you're interested in initiating one, you can look through the community opportunity directory and find one and give them a call. Okay, and I will pause now to just make sure there aren't any questions about that. Not seeing any. Okay, we'll carry on. Boy, good thing it was this webinar that my assistant didn't show up. The next one has 45 people on it. I don't think I could do it. Okay, so why aren't you clicking? There we go. Okay, so we have come to the end of our meeting, and we suggest that you end your meeting with another Girl Scout tradition called the Friendship Circle. The Friendship Circle, this is how it works. And there's a picture, and I know it's probably hard to see me. Right over left, join hands facing inward. Everybody's looking at each other. The closing leader, oh, such a good job. Everybody wants to do that, gets to start the squeeze of friendship. So if that's me, I start the squeeze of friendship, and I gently squeeze the hand of the girl next to me. The squeeze passes all the way around the circle to my other hand, and when it's gotten back, we turn out like this, right? So that's the basics of the Friendship Circle. If you're going to the annual meeting this weekend, there is always a very impressive giant Friendship Circle that you can join there, so that you'll get the lowdown on that there. So a few tips on the Friendship Circle. Put it on the caper chart, closing leader, because everybody wants to do this, to do the Friendship Circle, to start the squeeze of friendship. Again, remind them it's a squeeze of friendship, so a nice light squeeze, not, you know, a bone-crushing squeeze. And then a lot of times people get panicky because the squeeze they can't figure out where it is in the circle. So one leader said, oh, just have them put a foot into the middle of the circle when they feel the squeeze, and then no one needs to panic because we know right where the squeeze is. And other than that, you can do what you like with Friendship Circle. As another girl-led opportunity, I suggest that the closing leader, once everybody's comfortable with the routine, can pick something to do in Friendship Circle. The most common thing I've heard is singing the Girl Scout classic, Make New Friends, while you're in Friendship Circle, which actually, Make New Friends actually has like 32 verses, I just found out. I only know the first two. But if you're interested in Make New Friends, you can look it up on YouTube. So that's something you could sing a song, you could ask a question. There's all kinds of things you could do in Friendship Circle. So customize it however you want and however your closing leader wants to. Okay, we are done with talking about the functions of the meeting. We just have a little bit more to go. I'm just gonna pause and see if there are any questions. Okay, we're looking good. I think it's time to talk about Volunteer Toolkit. Okay, let's talk about Volunteer Toolkit. So as you recall, Volunteer Toolkit is that digital assistant that I talked about where all of those year plans, the DAISY curriculum is available to you. It's available to all co-leaders. So anyone who's a co-leader of your troop will be able to see your troop's Volunteer Toolkit account. Parents and other volunteers can see Volunteer Toolkit, like what you've done in Volunteer Toolkit, but they can't make any changes. It's read only. So how do you get there? You go to gsbadgerland.org. That's always like the first place you're going to start. And you're going to click on sign in. And then it's going to pull up username and password. Your username is always the email you have associated with your account, that wherever you receive Girl Scout emails. And then your password, you may have set it up at some point. You may not remember. You can always do forgot password, right? So that's how you get in. Once you successfully logged in, for sign-in, you're going to get a choice here, a choice between Volunteer Toolkit and Member Profile. Volunteer Toolkit is what we're talking about right now, which is all the curriculum. Member Profile is a whole separate thing that you can go to and renew your membership, renew your troop's membership, sign up for activities, change your password, things like that. So there's two totally different things, right? And we're talking about Volunteer Toolkit. So select Volunteer Toolkit. So this is Hillary. She runs our customer care department. They are super helpful. If you cannot access Volunteer Toolkit for whatever reason, you don't know your password, so for some reason it's blocking you, please call us or email us, because it's usually something very small and simple. We just need to check a box or something like that, because we'd really like you to use Volunteer Toolkit. How great is that? You have totally free access to all of the DAISY curriculum, right? So there's our customer care number. And you can also email them at info@gsbadgerland.org, and they'll get back to you right away if it's not business hours. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you some homework to explore Volunteer Toolkit. So in your handout section, there is a handout that's combined with leader tips and tricks called Volunteer Toolkit Take-Home Activity. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home and log on to Volunteer Toolkit. Hopefully get past that first step that you're successfully logged on. And then you're going to go to the Explore tab. That's new this year. They've changed it a little bit, but you guys are new. So the Explore tab, and this is where you're going to find all of those pre-selected meeting tracks that we talked about. So there's 10 choices of pre-selected year plans that Volunteer Toolkit will give you, or you can do the select your own one too. So meet with your co-leader or co-leaders and select a year plan. So you might be saying, oh gosh, I don't know what to pick. I don't know what the girls want to do. I don't know how this is all going to run, right? Don't worry so much about the year plan that you select. Again, I'll remind you that if you're first year daisies and you're like, what do we do? Do the petals. So you'll select that petals year plan, right? If you're second year daisies or you want to mix it up and do different things, right? You can select any year plan and you can go back and change it at any point. You can add and subtract things from it, but you're not going to be able to really do anything in Volunteer Toolkit until you select a year plan. So just make sure you just pick one. Don't worry so much about what you pick, right? You can change it later. So once you've picked a year plan, go and explore all of Volunteer Toolkit's tabs and planning tools with this year plan that you select. And the take-home activity has a bunch of questions on it, leading questions, to show you the different functions that Volunteer Toolkit has. If you run into trouble and you can't figure it out, whatever, you can always email me. If you have trouble getting access to Volunteer Toolkit, like you can't log on, customer care. If you're in Volunteer Toolkit and you're like, whoa, what is this? I'm probably the best person to ask. So you can email me, and you all have my email because I send you reminders, et cetera, about the webinar. Okay, so I'm going to pause and for any questions about Volunteer Toolkit. Nothing out there? Okay, before I forget, let's just quick talk about Stacy's question of ideas for meeting spots. And we have a little bit more to do after that, but let's just pause here and talk about that. So Stacy's looking for ideas for where they should meet. Any thoughts out there, you can type it in. I'll tell you the usual suspects are sometimes the school in your community, but all schools are different in what they require or whether they allow groups to meet or if they charge. So it's a question of looking into that. Libraries often have, I know Madison, they have lots of libraries have meeting spots that you can reserve. People have typed in churches. So you're not associated with the church, but they sometimes will have a spot that you can use. And then Alexandra says, we meet at a classroom at the local hospital. Oh, that's interesting. St. Mary's, I know, has, I live by St. Mary's. They have classrooms that you can meet in. And then another one that I've heard that was kind of unusual was the fire station. So I think it's in Middleton. The big fire station has meeting spots for if you want to reserve them. So those are some ideas. I hope that'll help you, Stacy. Send in more questions if you need more help with that. Okay. All right, let's keep going then. Let's talk about product sales. First product sale to be aware of is the fall product sale, which is almost upon us now. It's called In a Nutshell. It's a much smaller friends and family sale, smaller than the cookie sale. Girls sell magazines, keepsakes, etc. Training is provided. I do know the training date. The training date is September 20th. So if you go to the activities section of our website on the activities calendar or into the Pathfinder, you can find all of the rundown for the training for the fall sale. And I'm seeing why doesn't it come up as a question? Sorry, I'm questioning GoToWebinar's system here. Will there be online training for the product sale? Yes, there is online training. There's several modes of training, all on the same day. I'm not sure exactly how they're doing that, but there is a webinar, a record, and then they'll record the webinar, and you could probably access it at any time after that. And there's some in-person training as well. So you're going to need at least one volunteer who is the fall product sale coordinator. That's a role in your troop. And you need someone to be in that role because that's the person who receives all the paperwork and stuff like that. It can be you. It can be one of the co-leaders, but it would be great if there's a parent stepping up who'd like to handle that for you. And that's all I have on the fall product sale unless someone has another question. Nope. Okay. Let's move on to the cookie sale. Okay, cookie sale. So that occurs we don't have to worry about it right now. It occurs in February and March. Let's just talk about why we raise funds at Girl Scouts. We fundraise to pay for our troop expenses. That's the primary reason. So I would rate those troop expenses as number one is that yearly membership fee of $35 for girls and it's $25 for adults. That's number one thing that you want to cover, right? The second would be uniforms, third, curriculum, right? So those are the things you're raising money and you're during product sales to pay for those troop functions, right? This is the ideal, right? But basic rule of thumb, you don't want to find yourself at like Build-A-Bear, getting all the Girl Scout bears when you haven't provided for those basic functions. So that's why we fundraise. Daisies and Brownies can only fundraise via the 2 product sales. They are not there. It's very, once they become juniors, it opens up just a little bit and they can fundraise for their higher awards a little bit, but Daisies and Brownies only the product sales. So it teaches the 5 important skills, and that's not a lot of hooey actually. There's a lot of leaders have told me that girls really mature and come out during the product sales because it takes a lot of planning, math skills, all kinds of things come into the product sales. So training will be provided for product sale volunteers. And again, you're going to need someone to fill that role of troop cookie coordinator. So one thing we want to tell new leaders is that be looking for a volunteer other than you to fill that role of troop cookie coordinator. We've learned that new leaders burn out pretty fast if they try to take it all on, the cookies and all the leading duties, etc. So you're really scouting for, your primary volunteer scouting will be for someone to be that troop cookie coordinator, a parent, some other volunteer. You can divide it up too. It doesn't have to be one person. I mean, if someone says, oh, I'm happy to schlep cookies around in my van, and someone says, oh, I'm happy to keep the books, you can have 2 people be in that role. There's no limit to how many people can be in that role. We just really want to encourage it not to be you because you need to really focus on the leading of your girls and the Girl Scout program, et cetera. And it's really hard to do when you've got all that cookie stuff. So if you're going to have a troop planning meeting for your new troop, that's a meeting where all of the parents and the girls and all your volunteers are together. You're looking for that person to be your troop cookie sale coordinator. Okay, I'm going to pause now on product sales to see if there are any questions. Not right now. And one thing I did forget to mention, I usually say it in the uniform section, there is financial aid available to Badgerland families. So the financial aid covers the $35 membership fee, uniform and curriculum usually. So your role in that as the co-leader is to make sure that the parents know that that's an option. So if you're at a troop planning meeting and you say, hey, there's financial aid available at Badgerland, the way they would do it is go onto Badgerland's website and fill out a form. And they can also call customer care to be led through the whole process too. So you don't have to fill out anything as the leader, only the parent does. Okay, just want to make sure I said that. Is it also available for volunteers? That's a good question. For adult volunteers, can they get financial aid? I don't know the answer to that, Sally. I will look into that. I'm thinking yes, but I need to check and make sure. So I will get back to you on that one. If anyone knows, go ahead and shout it out. I feel like it is. And there's also financial aid available for camp. It's called Camperships, and financial aid available for going to Girl Scout programs if you need that paid for. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh my gosh, we're almost to the end here. That flew by for me. Training objective was to help you feel more comfortable, confident, and prepared to lead your DAISY meetings. I hope I went some distance in helping you guys feel that way. I am going to, well, first I'm going to say thank you for stepping up to be a Girl Scout leader. It's an important job, and we're really grateful to you for stepping up to be a Girl Scout leader. The girls are going to love it. And I am here to answer questions. So I will stay on the line to answer any questions that come up for a few minutes. I am officially referring you to customer care, 1-800-236-2710, info@gsbadgerland.org. I'm supposed to tell you always to go through them first, but you guys have my email. So I am not, if you have questions about this training or things you learned in this training, you can certainly email me. Okay, so I'm going to stay here and answer questions for a bit. If you feel like you've gotten everything you need to get, go ahead and sign off. And I will send you a follow-up email with a evaluation in it. That's what to expect next. And I will make sure that your record is marked that you took this training. Okay, so Amanda says, I think, so about adult volunteers, I think they can, just not for materials. Oh, good. I'm glad this was helpful. And I'm glad people are looking forward to their year. Okay, so I do have a question. For startup, do parents or leaders typically purchase all mandatory badges, uniforms for the girls? So I'm thinking you mean, do you get the, usually for startup, it's parents. That's the usual way that it goes, because you don't have any money in your troop funds because you haven't been through a product sale yet. So let me know if that doesn't answer your question. Do you have any helpful tips with a multi-level troop? This will be my first year with D to C, daisies to cadets, it sounds like, oh boy. Like my mind is like a blank right now, Melinda, but because this has been kind of stressful for me, but I will try to think about it for sure, about multi-level troops and get back to you on that one. Okay. Okay, so Amanda would like the forms emailed, the handouts from tonight emailed to you, Amanda. Okay, absolutely. Let me write it down. So Amanda wants the handouts emailed to her. Okay, for each, woo, gosh, they're coming in fast. For each parent that volunteers or wants to help on any level, do they all pay a fee to participate? So that's kind of a little bit of a complicated question. So if a volunteer is meeting those safety ratios, so that they're there to make sure that the safety ratios are met, then they need to be registered. If they're going to drive, they need to be registered. If they're going to help sell product, they need to be registered. If they're just going to be and registration would mean paying that $25 fee. If they're just going to be at the meetings where the safety ratios are taken care of by the leaders, and they're just maybe doing a little help at the meetings or just even staying at the meetings, they don't necessarily need to be registered. We do recommend everybody is background checked because that is free, and it just keeps everybody safe. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, Melinda, I will do that. I will email you if I come up with something. I mean, I do have ideas. I just don't have them right now. Okay. Okay, handouts to Jennifer and Sally and Kim Burley. Okay. And Kimberly, hopefully I answered your question about the adult volunteers. Okay, good. Okay, if that's all of our questions, I'll just hang out for another minute or two here. Thank you, Kimberly. That was a little stressful. I usually ask my helper. Okay, I am going to end the webinar and I'll right away email you guys those handouts. Thank you for coming.